Take me out. The boat, a lesson in leaving, to put it as succinctly as possible. 17 years of marriage, 2 children, ages 15 and 13, never very close because we're both rather reserved and emotionally closed off. We've been trying to modify that, and as part of that, my wife stated she wanted to start going out more, forming more bonds of friendship. As a couple or separately, we don't have many friends, and our last social interaction was in early October or early November. She joined a social group in our city for folks who simply wanted to meet more people. I never really asked since I wanted to give this place some space. Hello, good man syndrome. However, she soon became very paranoid about her phone and began to spend a lot of time texting. She would frequently check it first thing in the morning. Additionally, I've learned that she installed a messaging app on her iPhone in order to disable the SMS feature. I guess it's called WhatsApp, and create a hidden Gmail account. Additionally, I am aware that she has communicated with a few men and women that she has never told me about. She was becoming increasingly emotionally distant from me in the interim. But like a lot of people on here, I believe I'm just giving her the time and room she needs. I'm not positive because I don't have access to her email or phone records, but I'm very sure that she did. Is having an E in that she's made a bunch of fun cheerleading friends who are also fantastic shoulder to weep on. It's also likely that these cheerleaders are supporting her, empowering her to pursue her wants, and, for once, taking care of herself. Things like going away from me. Everything reached a boiling point 2 or 3 weeks ago. With the exception of one night when I was out with a church group, she had been out every night that week. She claims it was just a friendly supper with a man at least one of those nights. I kept asking her what was wrong and what she was doing all weekend. Finally, on Sunday night, I told Etc. that I was wounded by all the secrecy, and that to a lot of people it would appear that she was having an affair. She declared that she had made up her decision to end the marriage at that very moment. Don't even try to force me to go counseling, she said. Additionally, don't try to win me back. It's finished. She seemed to be limited to saying, don't try to change my mind like a broken record, for the following 10 or so days. Extremely suspicious that I was trying to take advantage of her divorce. We are not in the US, but she has seen a lawyer, and they have begun discussing the ins and outs of divorce. During a really relaxed talk, she eventually came to the realization that what I had been saying was accurate. Apart from the property, we don't have much. She will receive a lovely place to live for herself and the kids, and I'll get what's left over. In comparison to our lovely family house, I will actually be living in a dump because housing is so expensive in our city. For the first time in months, I saw a softer side of her when this disturbed her. We had been a little more emotional with one another, so I soothed her. Yesterday, I took a chance and informed her that I believed I could take care of her. I mentioned that I had changed, and I have, in part, because of this. I've now come to recognize that I'm a great guy with a lot to offer. Previously, I thought of myself as something of an inadequate person. She seemed happy and accepted this positively, but when she returned from work 14 hours later, she simply shrugged and stated, I can't do it. Hadn't thought it through very well, and I imagine she's been asking her cheerleading buddies, who have all told her not to be weak and not to go back to him. She is a very driven individual who has been reading Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway for the past few months. I believe she feels as though she has made a choice, and if she doesn't follow through, she will be betraying herself. So far, the marriage hasn't been all that terrific. We've both been a little emotionally distant from one another up until now, but now that I feel so ready to love someone, or someone else, I think our marriage could work out well. However, it might just be too little, too late. And one more thing. She resigned from her social group and deleted her secret Gmail account the week before our talk, the week she went out every night. I'm sure she opened other accounts since then. She woke up at 2 in the morning. She concluded with an E, I suppose. Furthermore, she accused me. A small fantasy of how amazing and full of life may be vanished from her sight. It hurts to be real, and it was easy to blame me. I've made an effort up until now to appear resilient and upbeat while yet being approachable. Now I'm not so sure. I'm ready to call her out on her actions because I'm furious. Even though I want the marriage to last, I've come to realize my strength. Realizing that I am a wonderful person is one of the things that has helped me find my strength. Despite my high IQ, I had always considered myself to be only a brain coupled to a really unsatisfactory human being. That person is very far from insufficient. My argument is that I now have to be loyal to that guy because I've come to terms with who I am and have learned to love and value myself. That guy doesn't take no for an answer. I'm a terrific man, and if you want to be with me, you will treat me the way I deserve to be treated, and since I'm a decent guy, I'll do the same. I have to give it some thought, but whatever I decide to do will be the best course of action for me. In my own way, I believe I'm heading in the direction of the 180. Treating people cruelly in an attempt to make them come crawling back is not something I regard as really cunning. Maybe how I see it is more about tending to my own needs and wants and attempting to develop a zen-like distance from the item that causes you pain. Ancient teachings of Buddhism. Holding on to things is what causes pain. For the most part of my adult life, I have intermittently had low-level depression. Even while I haven't claimed to have overcome it, I have come a long way. Working independently, She was as distant a wife as I was, especially once she made the decision to establish her own little universe a few months prior. Ironically, for both of us, dealing with this garbage has been the catalyst for our true transformation as men and as people. I wish she could see it, but she's probably never going to be able to, so she'll have to move on. I'm considering getting in touch with his spouse. He may be married, but I'm not positive. And after reading her perspective, I believe the E is done, and I'm wondering whether he got busted. The other option is to speak with him face to face, but I don't think that would do anything. Most likely simply result in me screaming like a fool and him calmly denying everything. I shall simply raise my hand and refuse to elicit any information from him. Yes, and I have erected the emotional barriers, demonstrating neither interest in her life nor concern for her well-being. Just having a calm conversation regarding living arrangements. The hardest part is actually controlling my anger because I'm currently experiencing a really bad phase of being furious with her. I considered telling her that I would demand that the kids know everything when we finally do tell them, that she had probably platonic connections with males. Who knows, though, given how cautious she was to keep things hidden from me and how much she insisted on wanting to spend time with the kids and herself doing something for herself. I genuinely feel like it, but I won't do it since that would be using the kids as pawns in our relationship. When they're old enough, maybe I'll insist that they know about it. She sent me an email just now asking if we might arrange to talk this weekend. She probably doesn't want to discuss the state of our marriage as a whole, but she is undoubtedly worried that I've suddenly become emotionally distant from her and that her cozy comfort blanket has disappeared. A week after she dropped her bombshell on me, 2 weeks ago, I asked to plan some time to talk about things, and she lost it, accusing me of controlling her and being manipulative. It would be so easy to toss that one in her direction, but I know better. That's not the cool, collected 180 man who's pondering how to handle things, answering emails, and setting up the real meeting, which I believe we'll have. My basic stance is that either our marriage is complete or it isn't there at all. She threw my offer to work on our marriage back in my face a few days earlier, therefore she voted against me. She cannot pick and choose which bitch she likes, for example, the kind sap who puts up with her whining about her job for 2 hours, and toss the others. That is not my worth, and I will not be treated disrespectfully in that manner. Now that she has stated that she wants to terminate things, I am trying to approach this like a business transaction, one in which I am in a good position because, in those circumstances, if the other side requested a meeting, I would also be willing to walk away. Though, as you correctly point out, I would meet them on my terms, I wouldn't necessarily refuse to meet them. Excessive aggression and generally overplaying your hand in business can come across as just as weak and insecure as giving in. I'm concerned that I might come out that way. It will be obvious that I have made up a reason not to go if I find out at the last minute that I have something vital to accomplish on Sunday, and that can come across as a lousy bluff, a broken heart. It might be wiser to follow the lines. Rather than setting a time and then insisting that we meet outside the house or that we discuss topics I want to discuss before I let her say what she wants to say, which she now claims are D issues, I'll get around to our discussion when I'm ready and keep her waiting. She wants to have a friendly conversation about the procedure she has already started. Nice implies that you desire my cooperation, something to think about. I appreciate your advice once more and will give this some more thought, but for now, I should just be myself and not strive to portray a strong, masculine persona. The 180 only functions if it is completely authentic. If you try to act like someone you're not and fake it, it will appear like a really pitiful act of posturing, and she will be able to see it from a distance. Secondly, to be the person I am at work and approach business head-on, since I am confident in my ability to pull that off. I have the ability to control my emotions and concentrate on prioritizing my desires. However, I must first determine exactly what it is. I would also like to hear what occurred with the E-guys. Am I correct in believing that bringing this up and making talking about it a prerequisite for talking about what she wants to speak about would be a terrible idea? Even while I'm extremely curious, it appears needy and goes against the 180 idea of creating your own future, and I have no doubt that she won't acknowledge it unless shown with concrete proof. When I returned home from my night out, everyone had gone to bed. This morning, she felt sick, so I started getting the kids ready, etc. She continues, we need to talk. She says we should talk about the kids because they've worked it out, but I just give up and turn away. She follows me around the home even after I put off our chat for a few more times. As I continue to walk away, we eventually have the conversation, or 2-3 different, disconnected discussions. It's undoubtedly a mistake, but I find it tough to just stonewall because it's about my kids' welfare, especially when it comes to emotionally engaging. However, mistakes are made by everyone. However, I believe she wants me to make things simple and pleasant for her, telling the children all at once that grown-ups don't always get along or something similar. I informed her that they would not purchase this and that she had to clarify 2 points for them. First, the reasons for her decision to end the marriage and divide the family. Secondly, the reason for her refusal to give it a shot. I asked her directly what she planned to say to the children when they questioned her about why she wasn't willing to try again. She said that she was at a loss for words. She needed one, I informed her. I wanted to gun her down in front of the kids, she replied fiercely. I replied that while I didn't plan to do that, I also promised not to hold myself responsible for her choices. She retorted, saying she wouldn't accept full responsibility for our marriage's breakdown. Translation: she continues to deny all responsibility. I am entirely to blame for the missed. When she went out every night of the week and the kids were wondering where mother was, I also brought up the fact that she wasn't as worried for the kids at that point. Or when she would constantly tell me that she needed to take care of herself because she was sick of prioritizing the kids and me. I know that emotionally engaging wasn't appropriate. However, it was pleasant. In the process of clearing my throat, I also indirectly brought up the I asserted that there was a problem when a lady was seeing persons she really wanted her husband to be unaware of. That's called an emotional affair, I added, and that's when she reacted, not when she denied it. Investigate it. Although this was undoubtedly a grave tactical error, I believe it may have actually assisted me in starting to sort things out emotionally. I've expressed all I had to say. I ceased to be a doormat. I confronted her about her misbehavior. I certainly feel a little lighter and it's like I can see her from a slightly different angle. Intriguingly enough, I can relate to her emotional state without desiring to change her situation or provide comfort. That's how I feel right now, at least, and if I can stay there, I believe that's the best 180-degree position of all. Respectable, considerate, as one person to another. Not any more than that, nor did she feel any emotional attachment to her result. That's on her. The potential has suddenly piqued my interest much less, however I might still look into it a little further just to be prepared. Life doesn't seem to be satisfied with taking away my wife, my family, or most of my belongings. It seems intent on throwing everything at me. It now seeks to deprive me of my health. I won't go into too much detail here, but suffice it to say that I have to undergo several terrifying surgeries that might or might not be successful. My day-to-day existence may be significantly and permanently impacted if they fail. Yesterday, I left the hospital with tears flowing down my cheeks. Thank heavens for the darkness, but I wasn't asking why. I was telling anybody was out there to go ahead and bring it on if that's how they wanted it to happen. I fight and stand by myself. Try your hardest with anything else you want to hurl at me. I genuinely looked like this insane man walking down the street, my jaw clenched and tears streaming down my cheeks as I muttered, I won't give up. People were dispersing, trying to locate the hidden camera. Of course, that kind of stubborn high is fleeting, but at least this morning, I still feel motivated. Later on, I had to return to the hospital. I'm terrified, really terrified, but I'm going to confront it head on, by me, the world against me. In the end, I did inform the STBXW essentially what was going on, but I made it clear that I was handling this on my own and that it was a part of my new life. On my terms, the only reason I notified her was because I recalled that one of the 180 principles is to avoid doing anything that might make her feel uncomfortable, and ignoring her entirely was doing just that. I hope that is correct. She has been sick in the interim, and I have been taking care of her like any good human being would, preparing meals and making her cups of tea, yet making an effort to do it in a very cold-blooded manner, much like a professional nurse who avoids developing an emotional bond with the patient. Otherwise, I've been attempting to minimize our interaction and ignore her. It feels weird, more like I'm being a whiny teenager than a strong man who will persevere even in the absence of her. Does anyone else have a similar feeling? What more will life throw at me? Apart from life itself, there's not much left to take from me. Even yet, I still have my honor, dignity, strength, and every other aspect of who I am. The 180-degree thing is challenging. I feel like a bit of a crap, or unkind. That, though, must be the conditioning of the nice guy. She inquired about every detail of my health and course of treatment yesterday, following my return from the hospital. I simply thanked you for your concern in a forceful yet courteous manner. However, I am responsible for handling this on my own. She had made overtures at one time, claiming not to have officially begun the legal process. I disregarded Iz's want to leap all over that. I resisted the urge to give up what felt like my one and only chance to make amends. Today is her birthday. Have done nothing, sent no birthday greeting or card. Essentially, to ignore her. I worry that I've missed the boat again because she's become protective and has put up barriers once more. It just isn't easy for her to say, I love you. Instead, she prefers to sit there and brood behind her wall. That was a lot of our marriage, me behind my gates, she behind hers. Though I'm still afraid that I've lost my chance, I believe I will have to be the one to reach out and show her love. I don't think the time for that is now. Our 15-year-old daughter, on the other hand, is starving to death and is utterly miserable. Observing her in agony is awful. Oh, and today I received some legal documents in the mail. Not much, just a few things to make sure she has a claim and to establish who owns the house. Nice nonetheless. Our marriage's entire history has been like this. We're both hiding behind emotional walls, hurting and angry, refusing to communicate, not being open about how we really feel, and assuming the other knows what the other is thinking. You get the idea. I've moved on from that guy. My heart is much larger, and I don't hesitate to break beyond my barrier. So, you're asking why I ought to carry out that action. We're the ones who got caught in the mess when she did. Simply put, the reason I can and she can't is the solution. Does that imply that she gets away with it and isn't required to try or alter anything? No. Being much more emotionally transparent and honest is one of my demands on my list for us to reconcile. Removing those obstacles permanently. But she can't do that right now because it will take time. I simply don't want to reach the stage where she acknowledges her error. It's clearer now. She is prepared to make changes and is willing to work hard in the relationship moving forward. Is aware that she has dug herself a really big hole. However, she is simply too emotionally drained to seek for assistance or make the changes she is prepared to make. It would simply be extremely unfortunate if it occurred. Of course, though, she has to get there. She must cease assigning blame. She must get over her anger at me for the predicament she brought about. She must come to the realization that her ideal of a carefree and straightforward single existence is fiction. Her grass is never greener. Above all, the 180-degree turn must demonstrate to her that there is a suitable guy in front of her with whom she may establish a long-term relationship. Of course, this whole conversation is academic if she doesn't make it there. I won't reach out in sympathy or despair. If she truly shows me that she regrets what she did and is willing to put effort into the marriage, then I will only proceed. It's also a one-time event. You are welcome to talk to me about anything you want to talk about. The door closes permanently if you're not prepared to make the appropriate commitment or if you're not serious. I think everything makes logical, but do you think it sounds like self-justification? Do I have this all wrong? If it can work, I want it to, if nothing else for the kid's sake. I'm ready to walk away, though. She's acting like everything is alright by singing around the house because she has a wild fury on her mind right now, etc., but I'm too familiar with her. She was extremely ungrateful, had a difficult upbringing, and was filled with rage. Before, I would constantly attempt to placate it. She seems to be a pretty angry teenager now that she owns it. Similar to a teacher or counselor, I have empathy but also detachment. The only thing to do is bide your time till the rage passes, if it ever does. However, I won't be affected by it and I won't interact with it. Children have also noticed and are beginning to act negatively toward her. It's unfortunate, but what can I do? Already, I've changed. I looked at myself closely and was pleased with what I saw. I discovered worth in myself that I had never recognized. Was always of the opinion that I was second best and not a man of character, if you understand what I mean. In actuality, I've discovered that I am a man of integrity, character, and love. I'm a really nice guy. I'm hoping that despite everything, she will value and want me. But I have no control over that. Someone else will value me if she doesn't want me or won't accept me. She has the upper hand, but only for a short while. She only expressed her displeasure that I failed to wish her a happy birthday yesterday. Mention how much you want to eat and have your cake. She believes that after dropping the D-bomb, everything will just resume on her terms. Just got into another fight with the kids. She wants to tell the kids that mom and dad don't get along and that they both deserve to be happy, but she also wants to give them some old, soft soap. She won't wash this, I'm telling her, and it won't work when they ask us to try again, as they will unavoidably do. She will then need to give an explanation for her decision to dissolve the family and why she is unwilling to try again. She furiously accuses me, of course, of advancing my own agenda and of attempting to discredit her in front of the children, and attempting to punish her in order to harm the children. The children are aware that something is wrong already. They're upset with her, much more than I did. Thus, informing them that we aren't getting along won't come as a huge surprise to them. I knew this wasn't a 180-degree turn, of course, but eventually, we have to talk about the kids. I did turn to go and tell her we could talk about it later, when she's a little less upset. So none of this is your fault, was her statement. I acknowledged that I was undoubtedly partially to blame for marital errors, but I hadn't decided to call it quits. That belongs to her alone, and she must take responsibility for it. While I was at it, I reiterated my opinion that her having had covert relationships with other guys was wrong and a betrayal of trust. I remained silent after that and refrained from using the term affair or emotional affair. She knew I knew, though, and that was sufficient, so she didn't argue. She is a careless person who seems to be emotionally wounded, and I don't think she truly understands what it is to love other people. For that, she doesn't love herself enough. Rather, she merely waits for others to approach her emotionally while hiding behind a wall. And in cases where they don't, as I didn't always during our union, she obviously believed that OM was bringing her love, though. She becomes quite resentful. When that bitterness really gets going, it can be quite brutal. It most definitely doesn't readily return love or exhibit forgiveness or compassion. This woman harbors resentment for many years. It's just pure neediness, and when it doesn't get its way, all it knows how to act is by throwing a temper tantrum. It is unaware that love is a prerequisite for receiving love. I would placate that rage and fear throughout our marriage because I was terrified of it. I always felt like I had to settle for less, that I had to make her happy in order for her to stay with me. Like her, I sat behind an emotional wall because I didn't think my love was worthy of anyone. But not any longer. I now see the worth in who I am. My ability to love is immense, and my love is a precious resource. I save it for deserving people. She might or might not, but but she is quickly approaching the unworthy group. It simply takes time for these things. Just received her lawyer's letter. In order to expedite the process, she desires that I acknowledge her irrational behavior. If the divorce is friendly, that's how things are usually done in the UK. I'm also getting lectures from the piece of trash pencil neck lawyer about how we should tell our kids. He says that I want us to tell the kids that it's all her fault, based on what my wife is saying. That is not at all what I said. She needs to take responsibility for her choices, I remarked. Like, be forthright enough to disclose to her own kids that she has made the decision to end the marriage and that she was not willing to try to make things right. Though I was prepared for it, it was still painful to see it in black and white. In terms of my asset, I believe I'm lost. Back when I was earning a respectable living, we owned a lovely house in West London. Prior to the recession, have only the house and not much else. In order for the kids to be close to their schools, I believe she will purchase a 3-bedroom apartment in this same, extremely pricey neighborhood. I'll take what's left over. I'm worried that the court will later decide that my new residence is unsuitable for the children and that my access rights will be restricted. Living in a typical walkaway wife fantasy land, deep in the fog, she believes that being by herself and having the freedom to fall in love again will be akin to a magical paradise. There will undoubtedly also be unicorns. Above all, I simply want to give her a firm shake and express that the reason we haven't been content is that neither of us was willing to take a chance on our feelings and put ourselves in danger. We were very protective of one another and hid from one another. You haven't changed, but I have. What gives you the impression that things will be different for you the next time? What makes her believe that she is some free spirit who, even if it means putting Sean T. Ting all over everyone else, deserves to be loved and free? Not to mention her own kids, whose lives will be permanently changed. She told me that even though she knows I adore her, she still needs to find love elsewhere. If things were going so wrong, I questioned when and where she tried to make them right. Since there were 2 of us in the marriage, we shared responsibility for its well-being. She claimed that she didn't bother trying to solve anything with a simple shrug. She simply gave up. Since the house is essentially the only liquid asset, she is not allowed to keep it. So, the house will be sold, and the distribution of the money will be determined. It will be a major adjustment for my kids because this is the only home they have ever known. But rather than being evicted by a divorce court and facing the possibility that my STBXW will decide to give part or all of the sale earnings to, say, a new spouse and his children, I would like to leave my house to my kids when I'm done with it. My issue with her is that she's not being honest with children, who are old enough to grasp much of what's going on. Additionally, it's about people accepting accountability for their choices and actions rather than trying to run away from the fact that some grown-ups occasionally don't get on bullshit tea. In the end, I promise not to tell my children lies. I won't act as though a shared decision is going to cause their world to come apart. The choice wasn't made in unison. She made the choice. She also needs to provide the kids an explanation of how and why she made that choice. Once more, the goal is accountability and honesty, not to penalize her. Similarly, I won't pretend to be unwilling to pursue reconciliation when the kids ask us why we won't try. I really am. She will need to be forthright with them and give an explanation for her refusal to attempt. It would be different if we were working with a 5-year-old. Then the adults who don't always use the internet would be useful. However, teenagers will want to know precisely who made what decision and why. To make the talk more comfortable for her, I will not lie. Furthermore, this won't be a one-time only exchange, even if I did lie. For months to come, the children will have questions, and it is unthinkable that the truth will remain a secret. Therefore, lying is dishonest, futile, and will harm my connection with my children. I doubt I will be living with the kids for very long. However, I won't condemn her and throw caution to the wind. She chooses to give an explanation. After she has completed her explanation, I will respect her decision-making authority and refrain from expressing my opinion. I'll let my children know they're loved by both of their parents, that they are unrelated to this at all. However, in my experience, children always hold themselves responsible for a divorce, that kids don't have to take sides and that we will collaborate to create a bright future for them. I'll also let them know that it's acceptable for them to be offended or furious. It's resentment-based. My 15-year-old daughter has already heard my wife say things like men never get married and don't trust men. I'm aware of only 1 or 2 remarks, nothing too serious, but it's not appropriate. We can stop there if my kids are content that grown-ups don't always get along. However, I can tell you right now that they won't be. They will want to know why this upending of their world is coming. The reason behind them having to leave their one and only home. How come their parents can't just make things right? Why have they been thrown into this unknown world so quickly? They'll be curious to know who is in charge. They will make a valiant effort to try and change things by trying to get us back together. They are quick to text each other to express their opinions when one of us has offended the other in the past, and they are astonishingly forthcoming and even-handed in their communication. In my opinion, it is much easier for the children to deal with and move on if we treat them like adults, tell them what's happening, and fairly and honestly answer all of their questions than if we try to spin a tale to get the adults in the room to have the difficult conversation. Therefore, if you were in my situation and your children approached you and asked, why can't you and mom get back together? Or at the very least attempt it? How would you respond? To answer that question, there are essentially 3 options. 1. Don't provide a simple response. These are challenging questions. 2. Tell a lie. Let's say you both agree that it simply won't work out, even though you don't really think that way. 3. Be truthful. Even when you honor their mother's choice, she left on her own volition, and she does not believe that anything can be changed. In addition, I would say that their mother is a decent person who made an honest choice based on her judgment of what was best. Though I would be curious to hear other people's thoughts, I genuinely believe that number 3 is the healthiest option for everyone. My comment, part 2, will be posted early tomorrow. I hope you've enjoyed these thus far, guys. If you were Opus, how would you respond? After a brief pause, I will construct the next one based on your comments.